Before I started doing what I'm doing now, I worked in HIV and sexual health outreach, and my last job, I worked on a national surveillance study where we collected data on pregnant women living with HIV. And that's really where my interest in breastfeeding started to intersect with infectious diseases and pregnancy and breastfeeding. So today I really just want to highlight some snapshots of some research that's in this area, some national data that has been collected by the National Surveillance of HIV in Pregnancy and Childhood. And I want to conclude with just some questions that I have as a breastfeeding specialist, and maybe we can have a conversation about how we can help as breastfeeding specialists, and maybe how we can help answer some of these questions about on this particular topic. Oh, is that one? Okay. So when we think about breastfeeding in the context of HIV, it's a very multi-layered topic. And what I think is at the center of this conversation is a woman's autonomy and informed choice. So we'll talk a little bit further down the line about the circumstances in which a woman would be clinically supported to breastfeed who has HIV. But with that in mind, ideally a clinician will take into consideration a woman's desires to breastfeed, her medical history, and just her own personal circumstances and wishes. And I think that should be at the center of a conversation. Another layer to this, is culture. So most of the women living with HIV in this country are born abroad, and of that number, the large majority are from sub-Saharan Africa. So they're coming from countries where breastfeeding is considered the norm. And so when people move from countries, they don't leave their ideas and practices within those borders, they take them with them. And so generally you're thinking of women who would be in a situation coming from cultures where breastfeeding is practiced. That's also kind of linked to stigma around HIV, because in these cultures, if you aren't breastfeeding, that may be a marker that you do have HIV. So that should be considered in the conversation as well. You also have this wider conversation from the more general HIV community of U equals U, and that means undetectable equals untransmittable. And so it's been well documented in research that if you have HIV and your viral load is undetectable, that you could have sexual activity and not transmit the virus. It's also been well documented, including in the National Surveillance Study, that if you're pregnant and you're on your medication and you have an undetectable viral load through around the time of conception, throughout your pregnancy, and around the time of delivery, that you won't pass on the virus to the baby. So there's lots of, U equals U is has been well documented in those situations, but it doesn't quite translate to, I knew this was going to happen. So it doesn't quite translate to breastfeeding. So it doesn't quite translate to breastfeeding. There's lots of research that, lots of gaps in the research about why this is the case. And then thinking about in the UK, there's this large message of breast is best, and so you have this conflict of messaging for women living with HIV, where the general population is hearing this message that breastfeeding is good for their babies, but yet they're being told that they can't breastfeed, and I think that should be considered as well. And also you have breastfeeding in relation to motherhood. So there was a study that came out a few years ago, led by Dr. Shima Tariq, and she did a qualitative study that looked at the reasons why women wanted to breastfeed or how they made their decisions around feeding their babies. And the large majority of the women in this qualitative study didn't breastfeed their babies. However, there was this overarching thing that they were happy that they felt like they made the decision that was best for them and their families, but they felt that being unable to breastfeed, they really felt that impacted their abilities as a mother. And I think that should also be a key part of the conversation as well. So these are the 2018 BRIVA guidelines from the British HIV Association, and I'm just going to paraphrase, but it says that in the UK and other high-income settings, the safest way to feed infants born to women with HIV is formula milk. And then it goes on to say that women who are virologically suppressed are on antiretrovirals with good adherence, so they're good at taking their medication, who choose to breastfeed should be supported to do so, and they should be informed of the low risk of transmission of breastfeeding in this situation and the requirement for extra maternal and clinical monitoring. And so, as a breastfeeding specialist and people who are interested in breastfeeding as peer supporters, when I see those guidelines, I wonder what they mean by supported to breastfeed. So hopefully we can kind of unravel that as we continue the conversation. So these are the WHO guidelines, and the WHO guidelines are pretty much aimed at low, middle-income countries. And again, I'll paraphrase, and it says that mothers known to be living with HIV and whose infants are HIV unaffected or that HIV status is unknown should exclusively breastfeed their infants for the first 6 months of life and introduce appropriate complementary foods and continue breastfeeding for the first 12 months. Now that doesn't sound very different from what we hear generally in breastfeeding. And so there's this conflict of messages, and that is because in low middle income countries, formula may be less accessible to women. Babies are more likely to die from illnesses contracted from unclean water, more likely to die from things like diarrhea, malnutrition. So the risk is greater to formula feed with HIV in that context than to breastfeed exclusively. And so in the UK, because there's formulas more accessible, clean water is accessible, clinicians here feel like formula feeding is the safest way to feed your baby because that's zero risk of transmission. And so this is Miriam. So this is a fictional person, but just to highlight, okay, baby? Okay. So just to highlight circumstances in which a woman may be clinically to breastfeed. So she's 34, she's HIV positive, she was diagnosed in 2014. This is her first, she was diagnosed in her first pregnancy, born abroad. She has good drug adherence, so she's good at taking her medications, undetectable viral load. She did not breastfeed her first baby, but she's keen to breastfeed the next baby. And so the key thing to take from here is that she's been diagnosed for a few years now. She is really good at taking her medication and has an undetectable viral load. So that is kind of the key circumstances in which clinicians would support a woman to breastfeed. So let's just keep her in our mind as we continue on this conversation. So this is just a snapshot from the National Surveillance of HIV and Pregnancy and Childhood, just to point out that in 2005 to 2009 there was a real peak of pregnancies among women living with HIV. So you're looking at more than 7,500, and then that kind of tails off. So if you look at 2015 to date, and this goes up to December 2018, that there's less than 5,000. And that's mostly because there's not a lot of new diagnoses of women living with HIV who are pregnant, and that women are getting older as well, so they're not having as many babies. And so, again, this is just another snapshot of the demographics. So in London, if you think of it here, it says from 2000 to 2004 that most cases of women living with HIV who were pregnant, just over 57% were in London, and just under 31% were in the rest of England. And so now, close to 2015 until December 2018, we're looking at 35.4% of those cases being in London, and just over 50% being in the rest of England. So you're noticing that change over the years. And also just wanted to point out that between 2000 and 2004, the median age was 29, and more recently the data says 34. So we see these women are getting older. Another key thing is the risk of transmission. So in the early 2000s, the transmission rate in this country, or the UK and Ireland, was 2.1%. And more recently, 2015 to 16, that is down to 0.28%. And I think this it's a really good transmission rate. There are not that many babies that are transmitted with HIV vertically in this country. And I think this is really behind clinicians' minds when they're wanting to say that formula is the safest way, because with formula you need zero risk of transmission. So this is some of the data that I don't think I mentioned in the beginning, but during my time working on the surveillance team, the last 6 to 8 months there, I helped to collect data on the women who decided to breastfeed. And so this is a part of some of the data that I helped to collect. And out of 7,187 live births delivered to HIV-diagnosed women between 2012 to 2019, about 135 reported to plan to breastfeed or supported to breastfeed. And of that number, 18 of them were supported to breastfeed more than one baby. So it seems like once a woman has the confidence to feed one baby, they want to feed the next one as well. 93% were diagnosed before pregnancy, and 83% of those women, of the women were born abroad. And again, most of those women were born in sub-Saharan Africa. I'll just go back to the slide that looked at the demographics to also highlight. If you look at where it says African born, so you can see the most recent data says 67.6 for African born, and that's actually a decrease from the early 2000s. And there's been an increase in Eastern European born women that are pregnant with HIV in this country. So this is another data snapshot. So this was looking at 102 supported cases of breastfeeding. And the key thing here is the reasons that women want to breastfeed. So this is a quantitative study, so it doesn't really go in depth. But what it was able to capture is that most women cited bonding and health benefits as reasons why they wanted to breastfeed. Okay, so what about Miriam? How does she fit into all of this? So this is a safer triangle, and I believe this was designed by Dr. Hermione Lyle from Imperial, and this is kind of attached to the guideline. So a woman who we know that is a woman that we know that is virologically suppressed, really good at taking their medication, keen on breastfeeding. So this is ideally what a clinician will present to her. So thinking of the safer triangle. So if you have undetectable viral load, let me just start by saying that it's safe to feed in this circumstance. So having undetectable viral load and a happy tums. So if your baby has gastroenteritis or upset tummy, that increases the risk of transmission of HIV in the context of breastfeeding. And if the mother has gastroenteritis or has an upset stomach, that means that maybe she's not absorbing all of her HIV medication, and so that could impact her viral load. And so the point where we're kind of most interested in is the breastfeeding aspect of that. So women living with HIV who are breastfeeding should avoid things like cracked nipples, developing mastitis, any infection in the breast, because that increases the risk of HIV. So the safer triangle: no virus, happy tums, and healthy breasts for moms. That makes it safer to breastfeed. Okay, so this is a meta-analysis that looked at African data, and it's really key because they looked at two kind of groups of women. So women that were on antiretrovirals for a short period of time, so about 6 months, and then looking at women who were on antiretrovirals for a long period of time. And what they found is that so when breastfeeding for 6 months, if the women were on antiretrovirals for a short period of time, the risk of transmission was 1.08%. And by 12 months, that had increased to 2.93%. And the group where women were on medication for a long period of time, the transmission rate was 0.3%, and by 12 months, that increased to 0.6%. So the key thing that comes out of this is that if you're on antiretrovirals for a long period of time, that decreases the risk of transmission, as opposed to if you're on it for a short period of time. But also noticing that the longer you breastfeed, it increases the risk of transmission. And the research is kind of still out on that. The jury's still out on that. Not really sure of why that is the case and how it's happening. So so that's another gap in the research. So this is just some questions as a breastfeeding specialist that I have. So I wonder, how do women feel about the delivery of advice that they receive around infant feeding options? Is it really presented as an option to them if they're a woman that kind of meets that criteria? And where do women seek personal breastfeeding support? So if you remember in the guidelines, I said that that one of the kind of conditions of being clinically supported to breastfeed is that the mother and the baby are monitored. So what that means is coming in for monthly testing, and so that's to test the mother's viral load to make sure it hasn't increased and gone, to become detectable, and to test the baby to ensure that they haven't contracted HIV. And usually, just from my experience when collecting the data, that usually happened with a pediatrician or in the HIV clinic. Where do breastfeeding specialists live in those areas? That's kind of just a question that I have. And where are women signposting when breastfeeding issues arise? And does she feel that there are options? Another question that I have is, how are women counseled on breastfeeding cessation? So we understand from the data that the longer a woman breastfeeds, that increases the risk of HIV transmission. So how are women being counseled to stop breastfeeding so that she avoids things like engorgement, mastitis, and how does that have an impact on her mental health? So that leads to my next question about what are the physical and mental outcomes for women who meet the breastfeeding goal. So we know from the study that some of the women who breastfeed one baby decide to breastfeed another baby. And how does that make her feel physically and mentally? And then the opposite is, what are the physical and mental outcomes of women who suddenly have to stop breastfeeding? Do they stop because they want to? I think we should explore some of these questions. And do women have access to skilled breastfeeding support who are also knowledgeable on breastfeeding in the context of HIV? And in this country, there is a real gap in the qualitative research around this. And I think that maybe we can have a discussion about how we can, as people interested in breastfeeding, how can we kind of help fill those gaps in the research? How can we fill those gaps in providing support for these women? So I'll just conclude with a statement for myself. So women living with HIV in the UK have the right to balanced, evidence-based information on infant feeding options. Personalized care is key to helping women evaluate which options are best for them. And if breastfeeding is truly to be an option for women living with HIV who are clinically supported to breastfeed, then they should not be set up to fail. We need multidisciplinary teams to support women living with HIV to breastfeed. And as workers in the breastfeeding fields, we need to ask ourselves, how can we help? So thank you very much. Yes? So is there any questions? Yeah.
Maybe so that might already answer this, but how do they get their breastfeeding support?
I don't know.
Because you work within the service, where did they come from?
Well, so the data that I helped to collect, that was not directly from the women. It came through their clinicians. And so there's a real gap in the reasons about why they wanted to breastfeed. So we would only get that information if that was kind of mentioned in the notes. And so I really don't know if there is a breastfeeding problem, where did they go? So I'm not sure. And I think that maybe these are spaces where we can organize to try to think about how we can get these answers, how we can get research funded, how we can set up spaces to support these women to breastfeed. Because we're all here today. It's about Black women breastfeeding, and a large majority of these women are Black. And just from kind of anecdotally, some of the data that I helped to collect, a lot of the reasons why women stopped breastfeeding were just general reasons why most people stop. For example, they would say, oh, the baby wasn't able to eat, because of mastitis, things like that. So I think there is a real need for specialized breastfeeding support in this area.
So I was thinking, if a woman asked me, and I didn't know who she was, and on the end of the phone, and she said, I need to give up breastfeeding, I'd probably try to explore why.
Yeah.
And if she didn't want to tell me she's got HIV and she just wants to stop now, it would be a real tussle if I didn't know
Yeah.
Like, and I'm wondering how many of us as breastfeeding specialists might have had these conversations and
Yeah.
not know we were having these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the support that you give a woman to avoid cracked nipples and mastitis would be no different to the support that you offer a woman with HIV. I think the only thing is sometimes topping up with formula is sometimes offered as a suggestion to help people wean off and that kind of things. But if you have HIV, you cannot mix tea. You have to exclusively breastfeed. So that's a challenge as well. And that was some of the reasons why a lot of the women gave up from what I remember in collecting the data, is because they didn't have the option to mix feed, they were having breastfeeding problems, and so they just had to stop and switch to formula.
Why
And
can't you mix feed?
because of what it does to the...
Same question.
Same question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So it's because of what the formula does to the gut, and that increases the risk of virus being transmitted.
Because it weakens their gut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Increases the permeability.
Yeah.
Tiny cuts in the stomach, and then
What about donor milk?
the risk of infection.
What about donor milk?
What about donor milk?
Oh,
Yeah.
what about donor milk?
I don't see why women with HIV can't use donor milk.
No, like if they were having issues
Oh, to
with the
mix?
formula.
Oh, I'm not sure.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
So Heart's Milk Bank will have provided milk for HIV positive mums, and you can use it temporarily if you're not able to breastfeed yourself. And the risk of the gut permeability issue is not the same.
Yeah, so instead of using the formula, use donor milk.
But are these options that are being discussed with these women? And how
Are they?
accessible?
By some people.
By some
No,
people.
okay, but not by
So if there was a mother who wasn't very well educated and she took the advice to then supplement the formula, considering she's not getting very good breastfeeding support, she supplements the formula and then decides to try and combi feed, in those early days, maybe if you're breastfeeding, it's all very hazy, that would then increase the risk of transmission for her.
Yeah.
But is this conversation being had, do we know if this conversation is being had with mothers when they're in the hospital?
I think that part of the conversation is very clear from the...
Yeah, so it's clear from the get-go that once you go...
But what's happening at home, no one knows.
Yeah.
And because one thing that I found interesting when collecting the data is, we would have we would ask, when did breastfeeding stop? And they provide a date. I'm like, does breastfeeding just stop like that for most women? Can you just, if you've established breastfeeding, and do you want it to stop? Does that just happen in a day? I don't know.
There's is there a secret, like a secret society of women that maybe breastfeeding past a year or, because it is difficult to give up. And there is that bond sometimes, I don't know, like maternal bond that you might not want to 100% let go of.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in the study, I think, breastfeeding ranged from 1 day to 2.5 years for some of them. So I just missed a question.
Are babies, mothers of HIV at birth, if they're, are they more at risk of any other things which mean they need to be topped up immediately after birth? You know how you get babies and they're hyperplastic, so is there any reason why they have any more of those problems which mean they end up having to formula in the early days? Or?
That I'm not sure about. I don't think. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I could draw conclusions, but I don't want to.
Yeah. That's what you get a lot of.
Yeah.
Generally with babies is on day 2 I had to have this because X.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if it's more likely to happen if they're likely to be illegitimate with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
I guess it's just kind of, and again, this is assumption. I'm not saying that there's data out there to support this, but I'm wondering if you think of things like what puts a baby at risk of low blood sugar, like having, high blood pressure. If these are things that having high blood pressure and diabetes during pregnancy, if there's something that more Black women experience, then maybe that might, that's just my guess. Maybe a correlation. Maybe I'm just guessing. Any other questions? Yeah?
Just taking on from that, I suspect inferior maternal care and the discrimination that women experience in a maternity hospital setting is more likely to increase risk, which presumably means babies are more likely to be separated and then whether that's going to increase risk of formula use.
Yeah. And then it's like once you introduce it, you can't go back.
So, would you for the mother that's carrying to maybe express in her pregnancy to avoid her then having to supplement with formula if she was unable to feed her baby after birth?
I don't see why not. Yeah, that seems like a good idea. So if you come across any problems in the beginning, you can have that option. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's part of the strategy. Maybe we can have those discussions about what would you do to
I'll
support.
put in the care plan, so if she expresses that she wants to breastfeed, is all the tools being provided to her, say, you may not be able to breastfeed, but here is, you can use donor milk, and then she can get in contact, or someone working with her to get in contact, just to set those safety nets up in place to help her on her journey. Is there a plan, or?
I'm not, I mean, I think the scope of this, the data that I was a part of helping to collect is very limited in that sense. And so I think there's a real need to ask these kinds of questions. I'm no longer working in academia.
Because I would, instinctively, if I was working with a mother who had HIV, I'd be like, right, so this is what we need to go forward. Do you want to breastfeed? That's great. Here are the risks. What we're going to do after the baby's born is you're going to try it. If you can't, we'll go back to plan. We'll go to plan B, which is donor milk, still keep trying to match and set up a solid plan moving forward, because the less stressful you can make it, obviously, the better. If you're stressed, baby's stressed, you're going to open yourself up to all kinds of illnesses, that gastroenteritis, all that other stuff. So it's kind of like maybe I'm overthinking it, I don't know. But it's a shame that there's not any data to correlate, to compare and see what's going on.
And you might have some specialist midwives who are really good at that kind of thing, and you might have some that consider like, oh, she has HIV, she's probably not going to breastfeed anyway, and you know, despite her medical history that says if she wanted to, she could and should be clinically supported.
Personally, I feel that it's awareness. It needs to be pushed out there so much, because if mums know this and they know that there could be some complication, because they may be with one midwife that's all for it, and the next midwife is like, oh, this is, and then if that's the case, then like what is really important for that mother is continuity, and to have someone, to have that safe network, and or people, if anything. So this is why I believe it's so important to know about, like, to actually grasp breastfeeding from an early age, but then when you are pregnant, to try and seek information antenatally, because when you've just had your baby, it's the hardest time to start making decisions and to say who's the best person to speak to and who's not. You haven't got the time for that. Baby needs to be fed, and so this is where you can then end up branching off and doing something that maybe not be your ideal thing to do, and you don't know your choices, you don't know what options you have, because it all depends on who you see at that time. So I think it's really important to build a network and to just know what's out there, so you can seek information and get that support from early.
I just had a question for you on that point, because are there groups of women of colour specifically coming together during pregnancy in the way that NCT works?
Okay.
Those aren't very diverse, right?
Well, it is. It's so true.
And very expensive.
Right.
And it's very expensive.
It's a particular demographic.
Alright.
that goes to that.
But then we need to ask ourselves, what is our problem as Black women in regards to engaging with these services?
So
not just that, like in general, that when there are services put out there that may be free and may be in their face, Black women are less likely to actually step forward to them.
But
Do you
is
know,
that
it's
because
the
there
older
aren't
women.
any other women of colour there? Because
Well,
I'm always the only one.
Personally, I just feel it all boils down to education. If you're not learning about the pros and cons, a lot of us just feel that, women are having babies all the time. You just had a baby, it's going to be fine. They don't realise, they don't look at the big picture of things. And it's only when you get older you start realising, oh, my health is like this. And, then you start reading things about health and like, oh, breastfeeding is good. And so that's why I think in general, it's mostly middle-aged women that are breastfeeding and breastfeeding for a longer term.
So you think Black women are having children younger and therefore they're not?
Not saying that they're having children younger, but then they're less engaged in regards to any of these services that are out there.
Yeah.
and when they are at an older age, sometimes they feel that they've already done it, or their family's done it, and we're so quite family orientated. You see your family members going through it. We feel that we don't need to go and engage in these services when we can just, like, my mum done it, my sister's done it, sister's done it. And to be honest, I feel that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but black families tend to have bigger families than white families. So we tend to have a sister or an auntie or grandmother around that can tell us what to do. And so that's where they're passing down their experiences. Some of it is very good, and some of it is not so, because if they don't go by evidence based, they just know what works for them, and this is what's going to work for you. So sometimes it's just like, early stages, you have to top them up because that's what I had to do. And then the milk comes in at day 3, or afterwards, and then you breastfeed. And then they've already sometimes ruined the breastfeeding relationship, because now your milk supply is not how baby needs it to be, because they've not been demanding from you. So your body's made a milk supply that's not for that baby. So you're wondering now, okay, I'm breastfeeding, but I still need to just mix feed. And sometimes they get thrown off and just continue with that. But there is ways to wean back off of the mixed feeding if they wanted to. But I just feel that it's just basically, we're not going out there to use the services. Like, as a black face working in the birth world and putting it out there myself and putting out the imagery, and I even put out services that is at a low cost. Sometimes, like, I even do a thing in the park for free, and I'm more, my clientele is not predominantly black, and but then black women are out there having babies.
I did wonder, this kind of, is it a part of this conversation? Because I think black women do kind of look to elders to give them information about how to look after their children, and that may have been what they were told by their doctors, but that's now outdated. The data. But I wondered, as breastfeeding supporters, is it part of the strategy to engage the wider community in the conversation of breastfeeding, like the grandmothers and the aunties and the cousins? Is that, if they are convinced, then they're going to convince their nieces and their daughters and their to breastfeed.
Then you have some people, especially the elder generation, are a bit stuck in their ways. And they don't like being taught by the younger generation. They're like, I know, I've done all of this already. Like, how are you telling me you were all fine, you've grown up well, and also sometimes so sometimes it's like that you've got to unpick that, and not everyone's ready to unpick and unpack, because sometimes it can be painful for them, because then they've got to reflect and feel like, so maybe I've done something a little bit wrong, and so that's the difficult point of it. So I think it's just where it starts with, we just got to have more people engaging, more diversity images out there, and it coming from a younger age, and maybe stop having these plastic bottles in the toy room and start having some knitted breasts. So babies and children are actually seeing this as normal, and it will just start to change the generations. It's going to take a lot of time, and the conversation needs to keep happening. So this conversation doesn't need to just be here, doesn't need to be Black Breastfeeding Week, and then now it's a different week. We're just gonna forget all about any black images. And funny enough, but there are black practitioners that are fearful in putting out black faces and black imagery. And I'm not making us look bad, but it's just the thought of that. If I put that out, I may not get clientele. And so they are less likely to put it out. And some of this is to do with financial barriers. So we need to actually broadcast that actually, there's ways of engaging and not having that barrier of finance. So this is actually good that we got onto this, because,
Can you just explain what you just said then?
So in regards to finance, so that's one of the blocking.
You might put off some white pie.
So basically, like, we are as a whole society are so used to everything being very white in general in the UK, and so black birth workers, some of them will prefer to continuously put out more white imagery than black imagery because they feel that it may lessen their clientele because black people are not engaging so much. But sometimes what is the barrier is the finances. So they feel like, oh, this isn't for me. Like, and they're going to keep seeing more white faces than themselves. They're going to be like, this isn't for me as well. But if they can't financially come and afford it, they're going to always have that barrier and be like, this isn't for me. And if you look at the statistics, yes, there are black families that are doing financially well, but we are on the lower salaries than white women or men. And so financially, we are more in a difficult place. So then in that, and also you can just see by where they put us in these poor areas. So if you're living in the council, unless you can actually financially buy your own home where you want to live, and so it's like, it sort of ends up being a vicious cycle. So it's, so in regards to not having the imagery, having the financial barriers, then they're just always going to see themselves that it's not for them. It's not for them. Like sometimes they don't mind. Like if they're not willing to go that deep, but just to have some kind of knowledge or have a community like NCT, because they really have a good community because it continues far beyond. They build friendships, and to not have that, like, and to have that knowledge, they're not gaining any knowledge, so they don't know where they're going wrong. They're not getting this education, but their babies are like, they're like, and they don't, and there's so many things they can avoid if they have this support in regards to also mental health issues as well.
So I wonder if the challenge then is for the women who are doing the work and are offering the services to be in a signposted position to the mainstream, so that when you're saying you could join the local NCT group, you basically have, obviously wouldn't be called that, but your black version of the NCT group, and then there's an option that is kind of coming through a service that legitimizes it and makes it a space that is safe for them. And then that could bring more women, which would mainly...
Do you know what works? Do you know what I said worked? Isn't like, what attract, you've got to find what black people like. Yeah, I'll do this, let's talk. They don't want to just let's talk. Why meeting up and talk? They're less likely to come. And then when I do the dance or do the workshop, they're like, ooh, let's go dance. And then I bring in all the antenatal and stuff and ask them how's their pregnancy going and everything. And that's when I get more of an intake of black women. So it's really finding what they like.
Is it more of a cultural thing, I think, that comes back to when our parents, or grandparents, I should say, came over, they would have their dances. They would go and they'd all meet up from wherever they were over London, they'd hire a hall, they'd have a meal, they'd catch up with, Potty from up the road. And so it's more of a, rather than sitting in a room talking, they're more looking for a social aspect. Like, I know it's still socialising when you're talking, but there's more to it. There's like more food, more... Yeah. It's been really food. You told me, you said there was a Caribbean food restaurant here, and I was like, that's it. That's on my checklist, and I'm going. It's like food, it's music, it's more, it's culture, and that's what it is that draws in. If that's like we're going to come together, we're going to talk, a lot of people are like, what do I want to talk from?
They don't want to be at school again. I'm over that. But then there's different ways of learning, and it's really just finding, like, I think with agriculture, it's finding what they enjoy the most and incorporating it into ways of carrying that back to these to the moms so that they can then engage with these services.
I think it goes deeper because I feel like there is a whole complex association with our bodies and with a sense of self-care and with a sense of health. Like, we're coming from a place where we weren't even in charge of our bodies and our time and our space. So to come from that legacy and that place to now be in a privileged position of having finances to then spend on furthering our well-being, there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and our generation's like one of the first who were in that position to say, okay, I'm going to look into hypnobirthing, I'm going to look into natural birth, like with more space and resource available, but we're having to unpack sometimes unconscious
it was, to be honest, a lot of that in regards to the natural birth and our family members helping us and supporting us, that was taken away from us.
Exactly.
And then it was repackaged. It was like, now you have to go to the hospital. You can't birth at home. And if you have, like, because even like down to my great grandma was a midwife that just birthed gave, like, supported everyone in the community,
Right.
but she wasn't a midwife.
Right.
She was like a granny midwife.
Right.
And then when I spoke to my partner's dad, my father-in-law, then he was also talking about his grandparents. So a lot of our like older generation used to support birth, and it was taken away. And then if we done anything natural, because we did a lot of natural things in regards to how to help with healing, and also in regards to, you know, now they have vitamin K. They used to use different herbs that they could just pick and give to the baby, and or get the mum to have. So everything's sort of been taken away and repackaged. Like, it's taken years to do it, but it's been taken away from us. Whereas it was said that, you know, if you do this, then you can go to prison. And that's how bad it was. So that's a part of the trauma that where we, like, it's systematically embedded. Like, the youngsters, we don't know nothing about it. We just like know that this is how we do things and this is normal. But we've not gone that deep to research what is happening, because we haven't compared ourselves and seen what's happening anywhere else. And then there's also in regards to our babies were taken away from us from very young. Even in Windrush, we had to leave our babies. Like, a lot of our parents had to leave their parents, and their mums came over to work here. So then that's another thing, that they was able to be separated. So then you have it that they speaking about, oh, you know, don't hold up your baby too much, you're gonna spoil her. So when we first give birth, we're like, put the baby down. We want to put the baby down, put the baby down.
Realising that was for survival then.
Yeah, for survival. We're
Now.
not in that time. So there's a lot of unpacking to do, but I guess it's when we speak about the benefits now, like, because there's so much science out there and it shows the benefits of holding your baby and feeding your baby, and how it helps with their brain development, how it helps with mum. And when we speak about that, and then when they start realising, like, oh, so you can't spoil your baby, and things like that. So we've got a lot to, there's a lot of unpacking to do, and there's a lot of educating to do. And even in regards to, as I said, in regards to the financial barriers, this event, any money that comes from it, is hopefully going back towards to be able to help us to pay for other Black practitioners wanting to be breastfeeding supporters or lactation consultants, whatever they want to do, so then we can actually say, you know, if you found the course or whatever it is, then we can take the money from that kitty and say, you know, we can pay for most of it. Some of it might be subsidised. It depends on how much they've worked towards it, because some people may think they want something, then when they've got it, then they waste it. And that's what we don't want to waste the money. So even in regards to providing, like, the money will also go to be providing support, breastfeeding support as well. So if there's if they have someone in the area, they could be calling from like halfway across England, and if they have someone in the area that they know they can't financially afford it, then we can send that money and pay that person directly to see them. But we might just tell them to pay, like, maybe depending how financially things are difficult, we might say pay a little something or donation, because once they've paid something, they've invested themselves. When everyone gets something for free, they feel like, you know, all right, maybe I'll just have her tomorrow, and think they can call back up again and waste the money, wasted that lactation consultant's time. So it's just really, like, I'm just hoping that having this is just building foundations for everyone to then branch off from.
And maybe there's about having a centralised list of resources as well that are specialists and experts and women of colour who can become a go-to for women of colour who are struggling and don't know where to find their local, but haven't considered interfacing with that authority. But when they know there is a specialist who's a woman of colour, there is a baby massage instructor who is a woman of colour, like you spoke before, it kind of makes that more accessible.
Yeah, and it is out there, but it's just promoting it.
Okay.
And it means that a lot of us has got to be sharing each other's work and stuff like that to promote that is out there. We've got abuela doulas and birth workers of colour, which you will most probably find as doulas, as well as the breastfeeding supporters there. And then you also do have other networks such as ABM, Association of Breastfeeding Mothers. They may, I don't know if you have it now that you can see who's there. I think it's just you call and you get someone to come and support you. But maybe that's something that one of the organisations out there can start to think of, having a directory where faces are put out there, so then people can then choose who they would like to support them. So it's just, you know, really, really looking at the scope. It's very good questions, because then questions give food for thought.
Well, I think there is something about services, the word services, black people have a certain relationship with services and the idea of being a service user or what that means. And I think there's a lot of, I'm a mum to be, and I've been researching what's out there, and there's a big gap. So there's things that are aimed at people who are clearly in, you know, the demographic really struggling, or, you know, on the poverty line, or, you know, maybe have other additional needs like mental health needs or so on and so forth. And there's services targeted towards that group of people, which I think is great. But then there's the other side of it where there's, you know, doulas for £2,500 or, you know, services that are clearly aimed at white middle class groups. And there doesn't seem to be anything in between. So there's a lot of people who aren't necessarily struggling financially or aren't in a real dire situation, aren't even in a council house, aren't, you know, but don't kind of fit in either of those places.
I understand what you're saying there. What I would say is that sometimes with the education, if we get the education, then we'll start to level out what is most important to us. And that's another thing, because of when we're ready as black people, we can find the money to get some things that we like and want. But when it comes to health, or like maybe buying natural products, so forth, we sometimes feel like, oh, I can't be bothered to pay that extra, like, because it's not visible to the eye. We go by what we sometimes see, yeah, especially the younger ones. The older ones start to become more within themselves. This is my opinion. Not everyone's gonna like my opinion. But in regards to like when it's a designer bag, like I've been with families that some families will sacrifice. They've got money and they've bought their house, and they will still buy their second-hand goods. But black people tend to not buy second-hand goods. There's a lot of stigma around it. Sometimes it's like, oh, it might be Duppy's goods. In other words, that the person could have died and left the goods and they got a spirit in it and stuff like that. So there's different reasons why we might not buy second-hand goods, but then we would find the money to buy, like sometimes we would sit down and save our money and say, I'm buying that designer bag because that's the bag I need, I want, especially the younger generation. But then when it comes to like something like birth support, and if you get a doula from early, you can pay off for nearly like the whole 9 months, depending how soon you get your doula, which then isn't so much to pay out one time. But you just feel that, oh, that's a lot of money for that support. But then if you look at the evidence and how, or even with getting breastfeeding support, how that can help you, and if you really look at the logic of really that you need that support and that you want to invest, then it's actually doable for half of the black women out there. And then, so that's one way of doing things. And then there's also that, like, some of us put out that, all right, this is the cost, but we are don't feel afraid if you feel that this price is high. Speak to us and let us know your circumstances. And then it's that stillness, like, I'm not being no charity. I'm not asking for nothing. You know, we don't want to ask for nothing, and that's just even down to breastfeeding support. We don't want to ask. We don't want to feel like we need. We want to know that we can get on with it, because it's a thing that we've always just had to do and had to get on with things. So it's another thing is, even when you're in the hospital, instead of just sitting there and being like, I'm going to make it through with breastfeeding without even actually having no support, it's actually saying, you know, am I doing this right? It's sometimes like we need to stop having that feeling that we can't ask.
I think I didn't explain my point. It wasn't about finances necessarily. It was the
you said that the prices are too high.
Yeah, no, but I think those groups, I've attended some of those groups, and I'm always the only black person there. There's no one like me, so it's either I go to the groups that are kind of not for me because I'm not, you know, I don't have mental health needs, or I don't need additional support in that way, or I go to the groups where I'm the only black person, and then there's no one like me, and there's no one necessarily to relate to in the same way.
Yeah, and
I think there is.
Yes, and then they go, so they leave. And it's true. So there's a lot of women that do go to NCT, or they look at it and be like, oh, well, for one, the price is really high, and like there's no one else that looks. I can't really relate to all these women. There's no one else that really looks like me. And then when you have that, then sometimes you do get left out of it because they feel like, oh, I don't know how to speak with her so much sometimes. And then you have that cultural barrier within these. But then it's going to take more black
I think it's a case of it doesn't feel like if you go to pregnancies, it doesn't feel like a safe space for you. So you automatically put this barrier up, which you don't, it's not, from the outside, it's like, oh, she's got, look at her face, she thinks she's, or she looks a bit on guard. But actually, you're just sitting back in your service in the room. I live in a predominantly white area, so I can guarantee that if I go to something like that, I will be pretty much the only black person there, like 9 times out of 10. And when you do see someone, you're like, I'm like, hey, kind of thing. But you survey the room, and then it's you read how you feel to come back. You might not come back. A lot of times I won't come back because it's quite cold. And I've noticed that we will get some people that walk in and they'll be new, you know they're new, and they'll just sit down and they'll automatically seem to build this magical friendship from the ground up, which puts people off. But I think it's like a double-edged sword, isn't it? If you don't go, then if another black person comes in, they're going to walk straight back out and play. But by the same time, if you stay, you're kind of putting yourself, you feel like you're putting yourself under attack and beating yourself up.
So I think what's going to change that is more practitioners of colour that can engage and draw attention to other black families. Otherwise, if there's not that, like you're going to most likely end up in a classroom you're going to be one of the minorities in that class. So it's going to take a lot because there's not much of us we're outnumbered anyway because we're in the UK. But then there's not much of us that are, as birth workers, that are out there. So they are trying to build up the connections and trying to put the word out there, but it's going to take a lot more of us talking. So these conversations, these events, will have others and everybody talking about it. So it may be that you know someone, you'd be like, oh, why don't you try this person? But when you don't, and you say, we don't have these events or we don't do anything, then everyone's in their own little isolated box, just working and getting on with their day to day. So I'm hoping that some of you, I'm sure I said this last year, some of you, so don't get moved, you just start to branch up and just do more within the field and sometimes just put this is right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
In regards to looking for a black breastfeeding practitioner or someone that comes with tongue tie, you're the only one that actually is out there on the tongue tie service as a black woman, and that I know of. And also in regards to you specialise in breastfeeding as well. So that's why I've come to you to see if you've had a difference in regards to your clientele that's come to you because of you are a black woman, and also to let people know that because you are there, they could be there too. Could you introduce yourself?
I've been employed for 13 years, and initially started off in the NHS, and I did 9 years across various roles, and my last role there was in breastfeeding in South London Hospital. So I did the breastfeeding, and me and my colleagues worked to achieve baby-friendly status. I went to do tongue tie training, and I started implementing tongue tie service in the hospital, but with kind of all the politics and kind of red tape you have to kind of get through, it wasn't as successful as it probably could have been. And with all of that, I decided to leave, so I set up on my own and didn't really know that this is how it would work, but just quite kind of organically through word of mouth, I started getting clients, and that's how I've been doing it for 5 years, and so I'm a tongue tie practitioner and breastfeeding.
What's your role in breastfeeding and how do you support?
So if I go back to my earlier days of breastfeeding, so I used to work with caseloading. I did caseloading with young mums, and so I used to be with them the whole journey of pregnancy, go with them when they have their babies and be with them throughout labour, and then see them postnatal. And because I saw them for such a long period of time, we've got such a relationship, and actually quite a lot of them, there were many who just thought, I'm never doing that. But those who did really go on and breastfeed quite well, because the breastfeeding rates were so much higher, and high discharge rates, and that we many still continuity of care. And the patient won't that I could really support them in that role. And then when I would work on the wards, particularly community, you don't see them for long enough period of time that you can give adequate care, because you might not see them. If you see them for that one occasion, so you can only really give, and you've got maybe 10 women to see in a day, you can only see them for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, if that. And then some people maybe only for 10 minutes, and so what quality of care can you give? And then with breastfeeding. And I felt that it was always, it's a conveyor belt system.
Definitely.
And particularly on the postnatal wards, you were just dotting in and I'll be back in 5 minutes, and you never get back.
Yeah.
For 2 hours. And so I found it really pressured, and I think for me that was the point that I needed, because I couldn't give the good care that I wanted to give with the time restraints and with the amount of women that you're trying to see in short space of time. So I did the best that I could, and the other frustrating thing is that I would support. When I got the breastfeeding role, I had a bit more time, so I didn't have to see those who kind of really needed it, and more complex cases, and I would kind of create feeding plans. But the trouble is that you've got so many other people going in and out of the rooms that they come in and want something different. So when you create a plan, I guarantee the next day I come back, it's completely different, and they're doing something completely different, and they're now topping up, or they're what we said is not happening. So that was really frustrating. Whereas now, when I go to, I get a lot of calls regarding tongue ties. So a lot of my phone calls are usually tongue tie related. So they may have seen somebody already, another lactation consultant, or they've been seen by the hospital breastfeeding team. So they're calling me either because they've got a confirmed tongue tie, they're suspecting one, and so I will then see them at home. So I go all over London and I'll see people in their own homes. And generally, we've got I find that we can go kind of through their history, look at feeding. If there is a tongue tie, discuss whether it needs dividing or not, do the tongue tie, and then feeding support afterwards within a 90-minute time frame. Sometimes it takes a bit longer, or if there's twins it will be longer, but generally you can give a good feeding assessment and support and try alternate positions within that time. And then occasionally we follow up, so I don't always routinely follow up as standard, because unless they want me to, so if we then follow up, then we can follow up as many times as they want. But often it's kind of then directed them to the local children's centres where they may have breastfeeding support groups to follow on the care. It's not ideal. Ideally, it's good to have that continuity, but then also you have to pay for that service, and I think that's where it becomes difficult. So, particularly if there's a tongue tie, they want the tongue tie done, and sometimes there's the expectation that that's going to fix everything. And I try to say that actually there's so much more to it. Yeah, it's just one part of the puzzle, and that kind of ongoing breastfeeding support is needed. So I kind of give them the, depending on where they are and their kind of post-stage period, but I say 8 weeks to really feel like it's second nature. It's exact time for feeding, things are changing, babies having growth spurts, and so they go to try to run the realistic expectation of this and then it's not fixed. And also making it that they can call if they want further support, but we straight. Yeah. But occasionally, I'll get, even years later, I've got emails saying, we're still breastfeeding, and I see a lot of second time parents who I've seen before, so I do see them again, and often they call me back and they've had a good breastfeeding experience, and they usually there's a tongue tie again. I often see that tongue tie again, or they just want to. They know that feeding was difficult first time around, so they're messaging me while they're pregnant because they want to preempt any issues, and so often I go to hospital and they're still in hospital and see them since they've been in the baby's hospital.
Yeah. Get stuff in the right way. Okay. Do you have any children, and did you breastfeed yourself?
I do. I've got 2 children, aged 10 and 7. I had a really great experience overall. I didn't have any difficulties in, which is why I started to get into breastfeeding, because actually I had such a good experience. I was experiencing so many women that were struggling.
So because if you didn't, you found it quite easy, you then...
And when I went back to work, I was working in the community and seeing lots of people struggling with breastfeeding, and started questioning, well, what's happening in hospital, which is why I then kind of went and managed to get a role with breastfeeding to see what I could do to help. And I realised it was actually beyond me.
Good.
But there's so much more to it than
Yeah.
just
yeah,
that time, the short time that they are in hospital. A role came up and I expressed my interest and went for the interview and happened to get it. And then it was actually after that that I started to do some more training, and I did a year breastfeeding support training, which I think was before.
Okay.
And so that was over a year, and it was very useful actually. And some things I kind of questioned, why didn't we do? Why isn't this kind of standard knowledge?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's much more in depth, and then with that plus my own experiences of breastfeeding, it all kind of came together.
As a mother, did the healthcare professional speak to you about breastfeeding during your pregnancy?
Not that I can recall. So I was already a midwife, my eldest, and I was thinking about that. I don't recall ever being
told
about it, and whether it's just the expectation because I was a midwife that I would
just
know what to do.
Okay, so did you have your baby in hospital you worked in?
My first one, yes.
Okay, so they knew you.
They knew me, and so I also had the same midwife help. So I guess if I had any concerns, maybe it was the expectation I would just ask about it.
Okay.
I never brought it up, and it was never really discussed.
They knew you as a midwife. Okay. And did your family ever speak to you about breastfeeding previously, before you was pregnant or while you were pregnant?
My own family.
Yeah, with family or friends.
No, but it wasn't ever. No, not whilst I was pregnant, but with my younger brother, who is there's a 13-age gap, so I remember him breastfeeding.
Okay.
I think my mum breastfed him for about 6 months or so, around like 6 or 7 months. And so I do recall that, and I've seen younger cousins kind of breastfeeding. But other than that, I've never had an actual discussion about it, just observed it.
Okay. Okay. And when you was pregnant, did you know how you intended to feed your baby, or was it just?
It was never something I consciously thought about. I just never, wasn't in a position where I was thinking, oh, will I breastfeed or will I breastfeed? I just knew I was going to breastfeed.
Okay.
I didn't have to think about it, or it wasn't really up for discussion. It was just how it's going to be.
Okay, good. Yeah. And did you have uninterrupted skin to skin with your baby after birth?
Yeah, both times I did. My first was born in hospital. She was born a bit earlier, but 36 weeks, but it was all straightforward and straight on skin to skin, fed very well after. My second one, she was born at home. She initially was needed some resuscitating initially, but she was still attached to the cord whilst that happened. As soon as she was fine, I got the skin to skin and she fed.
Oh, that's good. Did you need breastfeeding support, and was it offered to you?
I wasn't ever supported, again, because I think I just got on and did it. And I remember, the only thing I do remember with my first one was that it must have been around the time the milk came in, around day 3, I recall having some very slight scalp. But it wasn't even something I questioned. It was there, I noticed it, and then a few days they obviously healed. So feeding wasn't ever an issue, and weight and everything was fine. So there was never a concern for the midwife to say, oh, how's feeding, can I help you with feeding, because it was just happening, and because I don't have any concerns there.
Was your family and friends supportive of breastfeeding?
With my first, it was everyone just, no one ever said anything. It was just, no one ever brought up breastfeeding gaps, and I would put on milk and he would throw on McCoy and give formula instead.
Oh.
So when I found that out, I was really devastated. Yeah, it still hurts right now to talk about it. It was really hard. But that was not, and that was just to do with his own issues about breastfeeding and what the breasts are for, and whether it's deeper than I probably even know. But yeah, that was hard. The only other issues I had with feeding, kind of from a family perspective, is that with my older one, I breastfed till around 18 months. And there was a lot of pressure as she was getting older. Are you still doing that? And the comments from family that I was still breastfeeding and she doesn't need that anymore, and how long are you going to do that for? And I did feel kind of pressure to stop, although I knew she wasn't ready to stop. And so I kind of felt like there were times that I'd be feeding kind of almost in secret, because I didn't want to make others aware that I was still doing it. And so I did stop in the end, and I stopped probably sooner than I would have liked to, but more from the kind of external pressures. And then I second came around and was like, forget what everyone else says on breastfeeding. So we breastfed for 4 years.
Okay.
So that was a kind of almost like a healing experience, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I say she'd probably still be breastfeeding now if I let her. She's 7. She wasn't ready to stop by, but at that point I was quite having an aversion to it, and I needed to stop. So but it was a much better experience, and nobody actually ever said anything about me feeding her. It was all changed in the fact that I was doing what I was going to do, and I think they were quite aware that don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because this is our journey, and nobody else's.
Yeah. How would you describe your ethnicity? And do you think it has an effect on your breastfeeding journey?
So I describe myself as a Black British Caribbean, but I never think of the two kind of together. I really just, in terms of my own kind of thoughts on breastfeeding, it's just that is just what you do. You feed your baby, and that's, for me, that is their nourishment. So
what's the ethnicity of your clientele? What would you say? Can you give me a rough estimate of the percentage of Black families you seek your support, that actually come and find you and seek support from you?
Yeah, so majority of being white, middle-class women, and I kind of went back and looked and kind of did my numbers, and in the last year I've seen 2% of the women.
Of Black?
Yeah, minority.
Oh, I thought that. Okay. And
so not a huge percentage, and I don't know whether that's, is that because it's a cost thing, and that they are paid for the service, and often the ones I do see actually are mixed feeding, so they are breastfeeding,
and that's the Black families that you see on.
It's possible that it happens, but I'm just thinking of kind of Black families that I have seen. The majority of people will be mixed feeding already, which I'm not quite know. Whether that was their intention, I don't know, but they when I've got their used are mixed feeding.
What should be on Black Breastfeeding Week, and do you think that it would make a positive difference?
I think it's important, and I think that anything that we can do to help increase breastfeeding rates in the Black community, is always going to be welcome, because it's necessary, and that the health benefits are there, and if we can promote that as much as possible, so we can hopefully have a positive impact. I think Black women are already at a disadvantage in so many other areas in maternity and for giving birth. But if you can add this and make it more positive and give them a more positive kind of outlook or support, then that's only a good way forward. And so I think it's necessary, for breastfeeding generally, that needs to start way before they're pregnant, for starters, in schools, and it needs to go further back, because when you're pregnant, it's too late. So we need to capture them early, and even Black Breastfeeding Week, going into schools, into their I don't know what they call them, PSHE lessons, to put it out there, because they may never have seen their family breastfeed, and so breasts have been so sexualised in many ways that then they've got a baby, and now they've got to breastfeed their baby. That might be the first time they even have to think about that. So if we're looking at Black Breastfeeding Week, how can we implement that to teach our younger children? My next project actually is looking at supporting young parents in mother and baby units, and so that actually might be an opportunity where I can actually start supporting them at that stage, and younger parents that will help with the next generation. There's only so much we can do when they're pregnant, but it's okay, how can we help the next generation of children? What does it mean if we can make their experience positive? Then that's going to have an impact on their own children. And if we're increasing the rates of long-term breastfeeding, my 4-year-old daughter still remembers breastfeeding, that's going to have an impact on her later on when she can feed her children. What I do know is that breastfeeding overall, the rates of breastfeeding kind of drop by 6 months as about 1% still breastfeeding, so the rates are already low. I don't know what that is. I don't know how that differentiates between Black women.
So, in regards to Black women breastfeeding, they have the highest initiation rate by 1 to 3%, and basically, within my role and what I do and what I've observed is that yes, these mums will initiate it, but they're more likely to fall into incidents of breastfeeding issues. And when they do fall into issues, they're less likely to ask for the support, because there's also a little thing going on in regards to Black people don't like to ask for help or to see that they need any kind of support or help. And this is also putting a barrier there.
Okay, thank you all for watching. I'm just gonna thank you all for coming, and thank you for watching. Thank you. Does everyone want to say thank you? Bye-bye to everyone on Facebook. Say thank you. Bye. See you later. Sorry, we're gonna go now. Bye. Okay. So yeah. So I just want to say thank you all for coming. Time is really going. I did have more to do with you, but because of how things started off in the morning, I didn't get to do everything. We was meant to do some role play, and we were around breastfeeding, and we also have a raffle that we need to do. And I know that some of you might have a train to get back to, children to get back to, so I don't want to run over time. So I'm just going to definitely do the. Sorry, it's playing back to us. So I'm just going to definitely go over to the raffle. So if you can all have a look at your raffle ticket, and there's the bag. So I'm not going to be biased, because of basically I didn't get the time to wrap the prizes as I wanted to. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick from here. And Venetia over there has the prizes, so she's going to select a book, or she might even let you lucky dip and take a book or a prize. Sorry, it is, isn't it? So it'll let you be a surprise. So there, so you can go into the bag and do a lucky dip and pull out something without seeing. You can close your eyes, or you can just look and take it out. And it depends. I'm leaving Venetia to have the rules on that. So when you finish with all the small prizes, the last one's going to be the big prize. And this is so there's no biases within it. And I've got the bag here, and I'm shaking up Well, remember to take out your raffle ticket. Have you all had? Sorry? That's going to be the last one. That bag? Yeah, everything in that bag is the big prize. Ticket number. Sounds a bit like bingo. Ticket number 3. Oh, that's me. You can go and collect your prize. Thank you. Welcome. Okay. Who's the next lucky person? Ticket number. Straight in the line, number 1. Get your prize over there. Put your hand in. Pick one. You got it? Ticket number, a double number, 20.
She asked me to collect something. Was Emma Pickett? She just left.
Oh, is it her number?
It's her number.
Oh, yeah. Oh, do you want to wait for her to collect it, or do you want to wait? Okay, I'll call her back before she comes in. Oh, there.
She's gone home. We can't have it. Move on. Let's forget about Emma and move on. Please. My back's killing me. I just want to get out of it. Yeah, Emma's gone, so let's forget about it.
Alright, ticket number 15. 15, go get your prize. Well done.
Take my the garden, which is my safe space.
Who's next? Number 5. Hey, go get your prize. Okay, how many more prizes have we got?
After this one's 2.
2. 2. Yeah. After that prize. Okay. There's 2 more prizes.
An action pack.
Okay. Ready for the next one? Who's next? Number 7. Hey. Okay. So is it just the last one? Oh, the one left in a big bag?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's ticket number, let's see. Who else is going to be smiling? Number 17. Well done. You'll collect your prize. And now this is the big prize. This is the big prize.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Yeah. All right. Number 12. Okay. Right. Well done. Thank you all for attending. Well, actually, let's let her get her prize first.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think someone knows what you've got. You're gonna share. To La Leche League. Justine's going to speak on behalf of La Leche League for Great Britain. And I just want to say thank you. She's been supporting the event and pushing it out there, and came in, her, Elizabeth, they both came in regards to helping out in the morning, and they kept their cool with all that was happening, because it was a bit of a crazy morning, and I just want to say thank you. It's very much appreciated, trying to work out what may be going wrong, and then we was all meant to then speak about it and how maybe then give our observations and make our suggestions of what could have happened and how we could have helped the situation. And it was just for people to have a good aspect of seeing the calmness that you need when you're approaching a mother with breastfeeding. And it doesn't happen very quick. Like, you're lucky if it's just a quick movement that changes and make it a lot better, but there's more to it. And so it was meant to be a role play for you guys to watch and get involved in. It was meant to be our workshop to get involved in. And you know, doesn't mean we could never do it again, because we haven't done it now, so we'll do it next time. Okay? So thank you all for coming. I appreciate you. So much love to you all. Okay? Thank you.